January 2014. Harrah's Casino Hotel, Atlantic City. A maintenance worker kneels in front of a clogged pipe. It's the kind of call that happens every day at hotels. Two adjoining rooms are reporting plumbing issues. Toilets won't flush. Water pressure's gone. He unscrews the section, expecting maybe a buildup of paper towels or a dropped phone. What he finds instead are casino chips. Hundreds of them. Perfectly molded, high-value Borgata poker chips worth over $3 million, all jammed inside the pipes like someone tried to make them disappear. The plumber stares, confused. These aren't souvenirs. These are chips used in one of the biggest poker tournaments on the East Coast. He calls the manager. The manager calls Borgata Security. And by nightfall, the entire casino knows something is very wrong. What they don't know yet is that this mess in the pipes is just the beginning, because a few blocks away, the man responsible is quietly packing his bags, trying to disappear, after running one of the most absurd high-stakes scams in modern poker history. And somehow, for a few days, it actually worked. But to understand how $500,000 in fake chips ended up in a hotel sewer line, you need to know the man who put them there. Christian Lusardi wasn't some criminal genius. He wasn't trained in poker, finance, or even forgery. He was a hustler from Fayetteville, North Carolina, a guy who never wanted a job, never trusted the system, and never planned to earn money the slow way. He didn't grow up poor, but he hated rules, and he spent most of his life trying to find ways around them. In the late 90s, he was running underground card games out of rented apartments and back rooms, taking a cut off the top, always staying one step ahead of local law enforcement. It wasn't big money, but it was his first lesson in how easy systems are to manipulate if you understand how they work. That lesson stuck. By the 2000s, he'd moved on to something bigger: counterfeit DVDs. Hollywood blockbusters, pirated in China, shipped in bulk, and sold across the US under fake names. And it worked. Really worked. Over 35,000 DVDs sold. More than $1.3 million flowed through his PayPal account. But the feds noticed. Homeland Security flagged him. He was investigated, raided, and charged. The operation collapsed. And just like that, the easy money was gone. But Lusardi didn't stop. He didn't go straight. He didn't even slow down. He was broke, under surveillance, already known to federal prosecutors. And that's when he made the worst decision of his life. He looked at the casino industry, the rigged games, the billion-dollar profits, the illusion of fairness, and decided if anyone deserved to get scammed, it was them. To Christian, casinos were the biggest scam in America. They sold luck, but controlled the odds. They took billions every year from people who never had a chance to win. Slot machines designed to keep you playing. Blackjack tables that punished hesitation. Poker rooms where the house always got its cut. To Lusardi, it wasn't gambling. It was theft dressed in neon. So he made a decision. If the house could cheat the players, then maybe one player could cheat the house. And not just any house. He wanted to hit a giant, one of the high-end casinos where the real money flowed, where nobody noticed a few extra chips on the table because fortunes were changing hands every minute. The plan didn't come all at once. It built itself slowly, piece by piece, one detail at a time. And it started with a single question. How do you rob a casino without ever stepping near the vault? The answer wasn't in the cage. It wasn't in the chips people cashed out. It was in the tournaments. Most people don't know this, but tournament poker chips aren't real money. They're just placeholders, points. You can't take them to the counter. You can't turn them into cash. They're only valuable inside the tournament, and that made them vulnerable. Unlike regular casino chips, tournament chips don't have RFID tags, no serial numbers, no embedded tracking. And under the chaos of a multi-day tournament, with thousands of players cycling in and out of seats, no one's watching what you bring to the table. They're watching the cards. That was the hole in the system, a blind spot, and Lusardi was about to drive a truck right through it. All he needed now was a stack of chips. Enough to play, enough to blend in, enough to last until the prize money started flowing. But not just any chips. They had to look perfect. To do so, he just needed to manufacture belief. If the chips looked real, felt real, and played real, that's all that mattered. The rest would take care of itself. So he went to the one place in the world where anything can be duplicated for the right price: China. He knew the counterfeit pipeline. He'd used it before. Back when he was smuggling bootleg DVDs, the factories there could copy anything: packaging, barcodes, security stickers. Now he needed something more precise: tournament poker chips used at the Borgata Casino in Atlantic City. He started sourcing online: forums, black market suppliers, backdoor manufacturers. Eventually, he found what he was looking for: a company with the right molds, the right materials, and no questions asked. He mailed them a reference chip, told them to match the weight, texture, color, and print exactly. Weeks later, a package arrived at his doorstep. Inside were thousands of high-denomination Borgata poker chips, perfect to the eye, smooth to the touch, and each one a counterfeit. Each one worthless until it hit the felt. Christian felt one in his hand, ran his thumb along the edge. The plastic was dense, the colors matched, the print was clean. But chips alone wouldn't be enough. He had to know the tournament structure, the rules, the blind levels, the psychology of play. So he spent the next few weeks brushing up, watching hands, memorizing common tells, practicing how to win, or, more importantly, how to lose just enough not to stand out. He wasn't trying to become a poker champion. He was trying to survive long enough to collect real cash without triggering a single red flag. If he cashed out once, just once, the whole plan would validate itself. He could repeat it in the next tournament, and the next. One tournament wouldn't make him rich, but a dozen could. The Borgata Winter Poker Open was just days away. A $560 buy-in, over 4,800 players, a $2 million guaranteed prize pool. It was loud, chaotic, packed. Exactly the kind of environment where a man like Christian Lusardi could walk in with a fake smile and fake chips, and nobody would notice. January 14th, 2014. Atlantic City was frozen over, but inside the Borgata Hotel and Casino, the air was electric. Thousands of players flooded the floor for the opening event of the Winter Poker Open, one of the biggest poker series on the East Coast. It was everything Lusardi had been waiting for: a room full of noise, nerves, and adrenaline. 4,814 entries, dozens of tables, hundreds of dealers, and so much movement that nobody was watching for one man quietly cheating the system. He checked in under his real name, no aliases, no disguises, because that was part of the brilliance. He wasn't hiding. He didn't need to. He was already inside the machine. He took his seat, shuffled his stack, breathed slow, and then, like it was nothing, he slipped his first fake chip into play. Nobody blinked. No alarms, no questions. The chip moved across the table, was matched by another player, and disappeared into the flow of the game. It worked. The key wasn't to win every hand. It was to stay alive. He played tight, patient, occasionally reckless, just enough to look like a real player taking real risks. And with every pot, he bled a few more counterfeits into circulation. By mid-afternoon, over 1,000 players had already busted. By sundown, half the field was gone. And Lusardi? He was still in, still playing, still stacking chips. By the end of day one, he was a chip leader. Not in first place, but high enough to get noticed. Still under the radar, still blending in. His plan was working. He didn't need to win the tournament. In fact, he couldn't. Winning would attract too much attention, too much scrutiny. All he needed was to last long enough to cash out. If he made it to day two, he'd qualify for a payout, a real one. From that point forward, the chips wouldn't matter. The money would be legitimate. That night, he walked back to his hotel alone. Behind him, the tournament floor was being swept. The chips were being counted. He didn't know it yet, but someone had just raised a question. And in a few hours, that question would turn into a problem. Because while Christian Lusardi slept, someone at the Borgata started counting. Every night after tournament play wraps, the chips are tallied. It's standard procedure, a routine designed to make sure everything matches. But on this night, the numbers were off. At first, it seemed like a miscount. A few tables showed more chips in circulation than they should have. Nothing drastic, just odd. They double-checked, then triple-checked. Still off. That's when security was notified. At the tournament level, things like this aren't supposed to happen. Chips are distributed in precise amounts. Every table has a record. Every re-entry is logged. And yet, the math didn't work. There were more chips in play than had ever been issued. The floor manager called surveillance. Footage was pulled. Dozens of hours. Hundreds of players. But one name immediately stood out. Christian Lusardi. Not because he was suspicious, but because the Borgata already had him on file. From years ago, when his name came up in connection with illegal gambling operations in North Carolina. It wasn't flagged, just noted. Now, with a counterfeit problem on their hands, that note became a lead. Day 2 of the tournament began the next morning. Lusardi showed up calm, focused, playing the same way he had the day before. Careful, aggressive, calculated. But he could feel it. The energy around him was different. More security, more eyes, more whispers. He brushed it off. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was nothing. So, he kept playing. Another hand, another bluff, another fake chip slipped into play. And by early afternoon, he made the money. $6,814. His first real payout. Clean, legitimate. Proof that the plan had worked. He stood up from the table, grabbed his bag, and walked out like any other player. But in his head, the calm was gone. Every camera felt like it was pointed at him. Every hallway felt like a trap. By the time he reached his hotel room, his hands were shaking. They know. They have to know. He had no idea how much they'd uncovered, but he knew it didn't matter. Because if they searched that room, if they found the rest of the counterfeit chips, it was over. So, he did the only thing he could think of. Plan B. Christian Lusardi made it further than anyone expected. He played for 2 straight days, inserted thousands of counterfeit chips into one of the most secure casinos in the country, and walked away with real money. Now he was back in his hotel room, staring at a suitcase full of evidence. Hundreds of chips, dozens of stacks, over $2 million worth of fakes. And he knew the clock was ticking. If they knocked on his door right now, they wouldn't need a confession. They wouldn't need cameras or footage or witnesses. The chips alone would be enough to put him away. He needed to get rid of them, fast, quietly, permanently. He had options. He could drive to the coast and dump them in the ocean. He could burn them in the woods. He could bury them in a construction site, even toss them in separate dumpsters across the city. But none of those plans were fast enough. Because Lusardi wasn't thinking clearly anymore. The confidence from day 1 was gone. This wasn't strategy. This was panic. So he grabbed the chips, stack after stack, and carried them to the bathroom, one flush at a time, down the toilet. $5,000 chips, $25,000 chips, whole rolls of fake currency, flushed through commercial plumbing like it was nothing. Batch by batch, the system groaned. Pipes clogged, water backed up, and within minutes, 2 entire rooms on the floor were reporting plumbing failures. Lusardi didn't notice. He was already packing. He checked out of Harrah's and moved into a different hotel on the other side of town. Switched hotels, switched keys, tried to disappear. And for a brief moment, it looked like he'd gotten away with it. No knock on the door, no flashing lights, no news stories, no arrests. But back at Harrah's, a maintenance crew was cutting into the wall. They followed the blockage to the main line, opened the pipe, and froze. What came pouring out wasn't sewage. It was chips. Hundreds of them. 494 counterfeit Borgata poker chips, most of them in near-perfect condition. Gray for $5,000, mustard yellow for $25,000. The plumber stared in disbelief. He didn't understand what he was looking at, but the hotel manager did. He called the Borgata. And suddenly, everything made sense. It didn't take long. Once the Borgata confirmed the chips were counterfeit, the question became obvious. Who was missing and where did he go? Surveillance footage helped narrow it down. One by one, they tracked every player still left in the tournament. One name stood out, not because he was suspicious, but because he was gone. Christian Lusardi never returned for day 3. And just like that, the manhunt began. They didn't need a warrant to guess where he was. Hotel records pointed to a nearby motel a few miles from the casino. A quiet check-in, paid in cash. No reservation, no bags. Just a man trying not to be found. On January 24th, 2014, 10 days after the tournament began, Christian Lusardi was arrested in his room without incident. Inside, police found more counterfeit chips. Others had already been discovered clogging toilets at the Borgata, and the rest, the ones he flushed at Harrah's, had already made national news. In total, the fake chips had a combined face value of $3.6 billion. It was the largest casino chip fraud in New Jersey history, and it had gone undetected for 2 full days. The tournament was shut down immediately. Event number 1 of the Borgata Winter Poker Open was canceled. The players who remained, just 27 of them, were refunded equally from the remaining prize pool. Everyone else reimbursed. But the moment was gone. Weeks of planning, thousands of entries, millions in prize money, wiped out by a man with a fake chip set and a toilet. Lawsuits followed. A group of players sued the Borgata, accusing the casino of negligence. They argued that better security, better tracking, and better chip technology would have prevented the fraud. The case went to court, but the lawsuit was dismissed. Because as far as the law was concerned, there was only one person responsible, and he was already in custody. Christian Lusardi didn't go down swinging. There was no courtroom drama, no media circus, no clever defense. He pled guilty. 3 felony charges: trademark counterfeiting, criminal mischief, and rigging a publicly exhibited contest. The sentence was clear: 5 years in state prison plus 3 years of supervised release. And the money? He was ordered to pay $463,540 in restitution to the Borgata and another $9,455 to Harrah's Casino for plumbing damage, the cost of digging casino chips out of the hotel's sewer system. When the sentence was handed down, the New Jersey Attorney General called it, quote, a real-life Hollywood comedy. But behind the punchlines was a man who'd flushed more than counterfeit chips down the toilet. He'd flushed his second chance, his money, his name. In the end, the plan didn't collapse because it was too ambitious. It collapsed because Lusardi panicked. He didn't account for the pipes. He didn't account for the plumber. He didn't account for what happens when you're smart enough to build the scam, but not smart enough to get out clean. There were no interviews after prison, no books, no redemption arc. He disappeared, quietly, permanently.